Today on the Ask Brady Show, we do a deep dive, an even deeper dive into the church app controversy, and we try to get to the bottom of what's really happening. Well, hey there, Pro Church Nation, and welcome to the Ask Brady Show, episode number 39. We've got 4 great questions from the people of Pro Church Nation, and I'm joined as always to my left, your right, it's Roxanne.
It's true.
True it is, behind the camera, the editing wizard himself, Jonex. And the man with the cam, Alex Mills.
Thanks. It's not really as special as it sounds because I work here, but I'm here.
Alrighty, Roxanne, take us away with the first question.
All right. First question comes from Bart, and he sent in a video.
Hey, Brady and Pro Church Tools team. This is Bart Blair from Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada. And I got a couple of questions for you today, both of them related to Facebook Live. As you have so often expressed your passion for using Facebook Live, I have committed to trying to do some on a regular basis. I've done a variety of different Facebook Live videos. And one of the challenges that I have had is having an inconsistent internet connection. I've had several times when I've been right in the middle of answering a question, doing like an Ask the Pastor type thing, or sharing a devotion or some insight, some thought, and all of a sudden I lose my live feed. I don't know if it's problem with some settings in my phone, some setting with my Facebook account, or what the issue might be. I'm wondering if that's a common problem or is it just me. But also, in addition to that, one of the things that I've noticed is that I've tried using both our church account as well as my personal account for Facebook Live. And we have about 5 times the followers on Facebook that we have weekend attendees. And yet we almost get no traction at all when I do Facebook Live on the church, from the church account, whereas when I use my personal account, I get a lot more traction, a lot more response. And I'm just wondering if there's something I'm missing there. Is there a better way to utilize it? When you suggest that pastors do Facebook Live, I was assuming that you meant using the church account versus the personal account, but maybe I'm misinterpreting that. So if you could expound on that, I'd really appreciate it. Love what you guys do, and thanks for taking the time to answer my question.
Thanks for the question, Bart. When I think about Facebook Live latency and the inability to stream at a consistent basis, obviously the first thing that I'm thinking about is your internet connection. If you go to a tool online like speedtest.net, you can see what your download and upload speeds are. The first thing that I would do is look at what you're paying for and what your internet provider is saying you're going to be getting. Match it with what Speedtest is giving you, and then give them a call and say, hey, if there's a discrepancy, which I assume there probably is, because there almost always is, just call them and say, I'm having trouble reconciling what you're saying I'm getting with bandwidth and download, upload speeds versus what I'm actually getting. And what they'll probably tell you is that if you're using a wireless router, the speeds aren't going to be guaranteed to be as fast as we claim they are. But a lot of the times, there's probably maybe something that you can fix, because we've done a ton of Facebook Lives in this office, and we've never had a problem, I don't think, with latency, with cutting out, and we do them almost every week inside of our private groups and to Pro Church Nation. And so I don't think that's something that should be happening, and you probably don't want to begin using data. If you used LTE, you would probably incur a ton of charges unless you have a great data plan, which is pretty uncommon in Canada when it comes to the cost of data. So I would check with, first, what you're getting, upload and download speeds at speedtest.net. I would then compare that with what your internet provider is claiming you should be getting, give them a call, see if there's anything that they can improve upon, and also I would test in multiple locations to see if this is something that's happening in multiple different, with multiple routers and different internet connections. Because you did say, is there something wrong with my phone? I don't think that there's any setting within Facebook that would throttle your upload speeds. There might be something, phones have been known to throttle speeds based on upload and download if you're using LTE. So that could be something. But if you're using Wi-Fi, that shouldn't be an issue. Though, if you're not using an iPhone and you're using an Android, that's not an operating system that I'm super familiar with, and all hardware on Androids is different. So a specific piece of hardware on the Android operating system could be doing something different than what an iPhone would that uses all the same hardware. All that being said, it's difficult to troubleshoot an actual technical issue over a call-in or a Q&A show, even through a video question. So I would get in touch with the people that do provide that internet to you and see if they can help troubleshoot from there. Now, when it comes to the Facebook page for your church versus the Facebook profile, a lot has been made over the last week with some news coming out of Facebook that in 6 different countries, they are testing this new feature where only friends and families posts are going to be showing up in your newsfeed, and there's going to be a separate newsfeed. I believe it's going to be called the Explore tab, which does exist now, but they're testing changing it, where that would be where you can find all of the pages and explore and discover new content, similar to what Twitter has in their Discover tab, Explore tab.
I would actually love that, because I hate
yes, because
pages
what
on my
end
feed.
user would not want to see less page posts?
Yeah.
So we all want. The problem, of course, is that Facebook is funded completely by advertisers, and if anything, this would force more advertisers into Facebook. There have been rumors, I think maybe even explicit statements from Facebook over the last couple of years saying, look, around this time in 2017, we're going to max out the amount that we can accept. Our Facebook ads inventory will be maxed out, and they won't be able to make any more money from it. Now, they could jack up the price, though that would probably drive less advertisers out, so it might be kind of just like a wash. And that's why they're experimenting so much with groups. And they're pushing so hard into Facebook groups saying, run a group, have a group. Then we can advertise in groups. And if they switch this news feed, which I don't believe they will, at least anytime soon, that would also open up new revenue opportunities and change the way that they're able to monetize through ads. All that being said, I don't think changes are coming to Facebook anytime soon in that respect. But if nothing else, what we can see from Facebook is their continued willingness to force brands and individuals using pages that want a platform on Facebook to pay to play. So, if you have an existing personal profile that's doing way better than the church accounts, I would keep going with that. We found with most people that are doing Facebook Live, they have had no problem doing Facebook Live from their church's pages and reaching a huge amount of people. But that's the crazy thing about the Facebook algorithm. We don't know for sure anything about it. And so a lot of it is just testing. And that's why we talk about, the 3-step social media grading system, looking at what's happening with your unique audience and then reacting based on those statistics and analytics. We also talk about the best social media strategy for 2017. We do think it's Facebook Live. Both of those are videos inside of a YouTube playlist that you can find at youtube.com/prochurchtools. It's in a playlist called The Ultimate Social Media Blueprint for Churches, where we basically lay out everything we believe and think about social media. It's free. It's a free mini course. Go check that out. If you're on YouTube right now, should be very easy to jump over to that playlist once this episode of Ask Brady is done. Point being, if you have something that's working, keep going with it. Every audience is unique and different. Don't feel like you need to force Facebook Live on your church's page if it's working exceptionally well on your profile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. All right. Question 2 comes from Darren.
Hey Brady, hey Roxanne, this is Darren from Columbus. I have another question for you. We are getting ready to purchase some cameras, and we're looking at the Mevo cameras to do Facebook Live or to do live streaming. We haven't decided which we want to do yet. I just wondered if you guys had an opinion on those. We'd also like to possibly use them for recording recording announcements, other videos that we might think about doing. Is that a good camera to do? They don't seem terribly expensive. Is it worth the money? And just wanted to see what you guys think. Love what you guys do. You're amazing. Every time I listen to you, I get a little bit smarter. So God bless you guys and keep up the work.
Thanks for the question, Darren. I think you're the first question ever submitted on the Ask Brady show that came with a backing track.
I think so.
Nice little, ukulele or acoustic guitar. Very uppity and comforting, truly. And to answer your question and to give context to everyone listening, the Mevo camera was a camera that was released last summer of 2016. Originally, it was released under the name of the Movi camera, And I don't know how a camera company got away with that at all for the beginning, because Movi is the name of a giant camera company that releases gimbals. They were kind of the industry leader in gimbals before they became commoditized. Anyway, Movi obviously sent them a stop using our name legal form, and the Movi camera became the Mevo camera. Now, I was tremendously excited when this camera came out because I looked at it and saw, wow, finally, live streaming capabilities for a church in a super simple to use package that's affordable. The tough thing about live streaming is that there are a ton of different pieces that go into it. You know, you've got the camera, and then you've got the camera out into the switcher, into the encoder, into the upload to the live stream software. Like, it's just like 5 moving pieces, and every piece is expensive. The Mevo was going to solve that. And then churches began testing it. And it was... we all came to the conclusion that it was not going to be usable in a church setting. And the biggest reason for this was because you have to keep it within 5 to 10 feet of the speaker to make it usable. Yeah. And for those that haven't seen a Mevo commercial, what's cool about it is it's a complete live streaming setup, like I said, in a single package, camera on a tripod, live streaming. And what you can do is, it's a 4K setup, I believe. And so you can use the app that accompanies Mevo to punch in and punch out on the fly using their super intuitive app, and it gives the illusion that you're using multiple cameras in your live stream. The problem with this for most churches is, one, most church lighting is trash and not nearly bright enough to provide a camera of this quality. It's not super high quality, the type of light it needs to perform well. So you're going to get a ton of noise. It won't look great. And then you combine that with streaming. So it's being encoded and uploaded at a much lower rate, and then buffering. It could become quite unusable very quickly. And then secondly, for most churches, putting a camera on a tripod is not going to be the best option 4 to 8 feet in front of a pastor. And what if they're moving? Then you've got to have someone, I don't know if the Mevo is able to track somebody. And so it was a great idea. It got a lot of people excited. And then we began using it and testing it, and quickly realized the church isn't the application that this is meant for. And when it comes to other applications that you brought up, Darren, video announcements, testimony videos, whatever, I just don't think the Mevo camera is going to be the right application. It would not surprise me. In fact, it seems likely that a camera will come out in the future similar to the Mevo idea that does execute in such a way that it would be usable for churches, but we're not there yet, at least with the first or second edition of Mevo. So no, I would not recommend it. Don't be fooled by the affordability. It's a good idea, and it may work in some applications, but it's got to be way too close to the speaker and subject in question to make it usable for your church.
Yep. All right. Question 3 comes from George.
Hey, Brady. My name is George Holloway at Salem Lutheran Church in Tomball, Texas. Thanks for everything you do at Pro Church Tools. I've learned a lot from you, and you've been able to really benefit me and my Church Online ministry. On our Church Online, we do get a lot of prayer requests, and my question for you has to do with the tension between timeliness and thoughtfulness in response to those types of form submissions. Is it better to respond in a timely way that maybe lacks some thoughtfulness, or is it better to respond in a thoughtful way that might lack some timeliness, that might be a few days later, but you can have a better response? Or is it better to just get a response out there so that they know you're praying for them, that you've got their response, or whatever the form submission might be about? So thanks for your insight on that. I look forward to your answer.
Well, thank you for the question, George. I liked your example of prayer requests that come in. You feel like you want to respond, but you also feel like this is a substantial prayer request maybe, and I feel like it honors and deserves, earns really a substantive response. But maybe you don't have the time, and you're in a live service, and maybe there are a bunch coming in. But this isn't something that's unique to prayer requests. This is something that happens all the time in digital communication, where there are entire industries really aimed at helping you get to inbox zero. Because a lot of the times, an email will come in, we'll read through it and be like, "Oi, I do not want to respond to this," because you know how much time it's going to require of you, and then you don't respond, and then you leave it too long, and then you're like, "I wonder if I should respond to this. I waited too long, and now I have to really respond."
Yeah.
The way that I always approach these things is simply that I want to give a response as soon as I possibly can every time, but I do not require myself or put the burden upon my own shoulders to make that response fully fleshed out if I do not have the time or ability to do so in that moment. So for instance, if Roxanne sends in a prayer request during your live stream and says, hey, I'm going through a really tough time with my health, or, I'm in a really tough relationship, like something that you're like, man, this is serious and I want to honor this prayer request, what I would do is just make sure that you affirm that individual. Let them know, hey, Roxanne, thank you so much for submitting this. We've logged it with our team. We fully understand where you're coming from. We're going to follow up later. What this does, it affirms to that individual, I am heard. I am not being ignored. I am valued. But it also doesn't require too much time and effort on your part, at least in that moment. And then you can follow up at a later date without compromising, the feeling of that individual, the comfort, or really, the respect. Because everyone wants to know that they're heard and valued. Yeah. And you don't have to go over the top to make that happen. Something as simple as a 1 or 2 sentence response can just affirm to that individual, we hear you, we value you, and we're going to follow up later. One thing that you can also do is maybe you're the staff pastor or you're just a volunteer that's heading up the live stream. You can just use this as an excuse, basically say, we've heard you, we've logged this, we're going to follow up, a pastor's going to catch up with you later this week. And that way they feel like, oh, great, I'm going to be redirected to the correct person, and then I'll be followed up with like the person that's going to be actually able to help me and hear me and spend some significant time with me. Another thing that you can do is just say, hey, Roxanne, thanks so much for the prayer request. I just sent up a quick prayer for you, but I want to follow up later and really talk this through and really spend some time with you. And that way you affirm, hey, I prayed for you right in this moment, but we're going to take this a step further and a step deeper in the future. So simply respond first with an affirmation, and then secondly with a promise for follow-up in the future. It'll save you time in the interim and allow you to go deeper with that individual down the road.
Yep. All right. Last question comes from Matt, and he says, Brady, can you provide a link for the announcement for Apple that they will be removing Subsplash apps from the App Store? You said it had happened in the last week, but Google search doesn't seem to turn up anything about this news.
Okay, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time responding to a number of different questions on last week's episode of Ask Brady, the Ask Brady Show, episode number 38. We talked about the upcoming changes and now implemented changes to the Apple App Store. Basically, Apple has come out and said we are no longer going to be accepting apps that are built using templatized software. Only stuff that's built from scratch. You can't build the same app for 1,000 different companies or churches, submit them, and expect them to be approved. Right. And when I came out and said this, I had done a bunch of research, but as I perhaps overlooked, a lot of this research isn't yet public. And we're going to get into that in just a moment. But first, I want to read aloud some of the comments and questions that were made on the actual thread last week. Obviously, the question that Roxanne just mentioned. I actually don't have the screenshots written down. I have a bunch of other stuff. Okay, I'm not going to waste time on the questions. Basically, a bunch of people were asking, Brady, are you just making this up? Or is this clickbait? Are you just like saying this to scare people? Like, what is it? So, firstly, let's talk about how... I don't have this written down. I tried to be organized, and I was a little too organized, and now I have way too much that I've written down. Okay, so... let's first say and just realize that there are a bunch of big church app companies. 3 that come to mind. Number 1, Subsplash. They're probably the biggest, the church app. Number 2, PushPay/eChurch. And then number 3, Aware is another big one. Of those 3 companies, 2 have come out with official statements. eChurch and Aware apps. Aware 3 apps? I'm not exactly sure. But I want to read to you an excerpt from the eChurch statement, because this is where a lot of my insight came from. Obviously, eChurch, they're creating hundreds upon hundreds, thousands upon thousands of apps for churches. I think they service like 7,000 churches with their giving platform right now, is the last that I heard. And of those 7,000, like they all get apps. So you can imagine the number of apps that they put together. Also, the links to everything that I'm going to mention will be in the comments or show notes so that you can track them down. I'm going to make sure I give those to Jonas. First of all, Apple's new rule, if you want to look it up, is Rule 4.2.6 that puts an end to standalone templatized mobile apps. Like I said, here is what eChurch says in their statement. According to our own conversations with Apple, and then this is in italics to emphasize their point, no one will be grandfathered in and escape the need to make these changes in perpetuity. Yes, app publishers will be able to continue as is for a time, but not forever. App publishers impacted by this change have been given an end date by Apple, regardless of whether they've communicated this end date to their customers. Do not be fooled, this is still them, by church app publishers telling you what you want to hear with talk of their church apps being immune to these changes. Unless the code for your app is generated uniquely, your app will eventually have to change. Now, the key there is eventually, perpetuity, and at some later date, because the concern and confusion has come up from Subsplash's part. And I want to give a huge props to eChurch and PushPay for coming out with a very matter-of-fact statement and explanation on the changes and how they are being affected by it. I do not envy the position that Subsplash, eChurch, Aware, and any other commercialized app template company, church or otherwise, is going through right now. It's not fun to have this giant product and then Apple, the biggest company in the world, come in and say, hey, nah, not anymore. That's terrifying. And I don't envy their positions, and I don't want it to come off like I'm being pompous or thinking that we're better than them or haha, I told you so. But there's a reason that Apple is no longer allowing these apps. As I have alluded to, using data and statistics, not a personal opinion, I just base this on the empirical evidence that we have. These type of apps do not help people very much on the whole. Are there unique occasions where they do? Sure, everything works, and that's the problem. We can convince ourselves that what we're doing is the best when something so much better and cheaper and more affordable and more accessible is right around the corner under our noses if we just look right there at the data. There's a reason that Apple is saying no longer will these apps be accepted. Now, the big confusion, like I said, comes on Subsplash's part. And I think that it would be very helpful for them to come out in an official statement and explain to their users what's going to happen. Now, the problem is, as they are the biggest church app company, is that because they haven't come out and said anything, there's a lot of hearsay. Now, the interesting thing about the church market, and this has developed over the last 12 to 24 months, is that there are now a number of Facebook groups where the entire church communications market hangs out, and so there really isn't anything that you can hide from. When we released Nucleus to the world, within minutes, there were dozens of threads critiquing everything that we had done, saying, this is good, this is bad, this is trash, we like it, we hate it, Brady, you're awesome, Brady, you suck. You can't escape this because we're such a tight-knit community that's very insular. So to that end, when I first heard about the news that church apps were no longer going to be allowed inside of the App Store going forward, I went to the Facebook groups. And in fact, I'd been tagged in a number of threads where people had been basically announcing what was happening. So here is the official message that Tim Turner, the CEO of Subsplash, sent out to some of their users. We don't know how many got this message, but what we do know is this message went out to users with existing apps already in the App Store. It said, hey, Subsplash user, we've had a few clients contact to ask us if Apple's latest policy changes regarding restricting template-based apps will affect their app. Good news. As a Subsplash client, you are not impacted by this change, as we have confirmed with Apple that your app is secured and not affected in any way by the latest policy changes. This means your app will continue to thrive and be updated going forward. In fact, as part of our ongoing improvements, we're rolling out new features and updates to your app and capabilities over the coming months. Keep in mind that there has been a lot of information shared on the topic of the Apple policy changes, as it has affected many apps in the App Store, but rest assured that with Subsplash, your app is unaffected, and we will always communicate with you directly. If you have any questions, contact this person or that person. So that was the message that they sent out to their existing users who have existing apps. Then in the Facebook thread that I was reading, one of the many, I saw this from a lady named Christine. She says, I use Subsplash and I never received any info about this. I emailed a rep after I found out and asked about my situation. I'm a customer, but I've yet to submit my app to the store. And that is a key distinction. This individual has not yet submitted their app, so they did not get the message from the CEO about their app being fine. This lady goes on to say, I assume in Apple's mind, I'm a new creator that won't get published. However, when I contacted my rep at Subsplash, they said they had arranged for a few spots to be grandfathered in, and that if I hurry to submit my app, I would get it in time. The response, in her words, feels a bit deceptive, as I understand the new Apple rules, but then this article seems to confirm a no grandfathered policy. The article she's referencing to is the eChurch article that explicitly stated, do not be fooled by app publishers that say you are fine. So you can see that there's a lot of hearsay, a lot of confusion. Not really anyone knows what's up. The problem is there isn't a lot of hearsay. Everyone is very clear except for one company, Subsplash. Now, they may have arranged something that is, backdoor that we don't know about, which is very possible. Except for, I have a few connections at Subsplash, and here is what one of them said. Let me check. Subsplash is definitely affected. Word on the street, again, hearsay. Word on the street is they negotiated an extension with Apple for some time into 2018 for customers they currently have in the pipeline. New customers will be on a consolidated app, more on that in a second. Any old customers who need to submit an update to the App Store, not content updates in your Subsplash panel, will be rejected. So, it sounds like there's been an extension, which is great and lines up with what Tim said in the message, except for the fact that when iOS 12 rolls out, or when eventually Apple decides, okay, that's it, now nothing, you got to change stuff. We gave you a long time. You've got to change stuff. Every app company is confirming the same thing except for Subsplash. eChurch has come out and said, don't believe people that say they have a special agreement with Apple. So either Apple is telling different things to different people, which is possible, or an extension has been granted, and eventually church apps are still going to be moved out, and Subsplash has not been upfront with that, and they've only communicated privately with their users, which would be fine, except for the insular nature of the church marketing world and the fact that every email and message got shared publicly with everyone. It would be best, Subsplash, if you just come out and make a statement that's clear to everyone, which I think is probably the right thing to do. Again, I have never been in this situation. My company is not nearly the size of Subsplash, and I do not envy what they're going through, and I don't mean to call them out and say, you need to do this. It's not my place. What I am trying to do, though, is provide clarity to the thousands upon thousands of people that watch this show, listen to this show, and follow us online, because so many of them are confused and have no idea what's happening, and that's who I am here to advocate for, not for a big company that makes apps. I'm here to advocate for Pro Church Nation and the many who have spent thousands upon thousands on their mobile apps and are now confused about what's going to happen. In that Subsplash message, you heard the word consolidated app. Mm-hmm. And if you look up the Aware church app PR statement, the eChurch church app PR statement, or the private message that Subsplash sent out, you will notice a common theme. They are all creating these giant apps that you will download and then search based on your location or church name within the giant app for your individual app. And just this week, coincidentally, not a coincidence, a new app was released in the App Store called the Church app. If you search the Church app, all one word, in the App Store, you'll find it. And what happens when you open the Church app? You are led to a blank page that looks... Shockingly, this app is slow. Okay, cheap shot, my bad. How do I get back to this? There we go. So if you open this app for the first time, you are presented with a page like this. At the top, it says search. You can also search by city or zip code. Once you type in your city, zip code, or church name, you find your app and you find it in there. Interestingly, this app now functions identically to a web browser does. You open up an app that does not have your church logo stored on your phone homepage, which was a huge reason why people love apps. You can see your own church's logo on the page. We don't have that. We have just a generic cross. And then within that, you search your church. I think this consolidated app idea is probably the best that these big church app companies are able to come up with, and props on them for getting it out this quickly. But all it is a browser. The whole reason that you use an app is so that you don't have to go into a browser, because we believe that that is difficult. It's not. Data would suggest that downloading an app is much more prohibitive than using a browser. But now you have to download the app and then use it as a browser. So it's even worse. So all this to say, to summarize, can we summarize? It looks like negotiations may have been made amongst some church app companies, especially the bigger ones, to extend existing apps and their updates into 2018. That's the perpetuity line that eChurch used. What we also can incur from this is the fact that those negotiations and extensions will not last forever. Eventually, your church app will be kicked out or have to change. Maybe Church app will come up with a way to change their code in such a way that they, skirt the system in some way. Maybe that's possible. But what we do know is that eChurch has come out and said, look, no extensions are being given. Don't believe other people. So the fact that I said that was based on the fact that giant app companies have had conversations with Apple and are contradicting other app companies that refuse to release information for some reason or another. So what happens? Well, we have to figure this out, so we talk amongst ourselves. This is the data as we have it right now. You can probably ascertain conclusions on your own, but I did want to source and cite everything and give you as much information as possible because it seemed like some people didn't believe what I had to say, which is fine. You don't have to believe me. That's totally up to you. Hopefully, this additional information can flesh out that conversation a bit more. I do apologize for the long-winded answer on this, but I think it's a big deal. A lot of money is involved in here, both for churches and the big app companies, and it's all because Apple decided to change their mind, change the rules.
Yep.
Anything you want to add?
No, that was all really interesting because I didn't really know a lot of that. So
the problem is almost no one knows any of that. And so we're all just left guessing, which is why big props to Aware and eChurch for coming out with those very matter-of-fact, simply stated PR releases that for their users make it very clear in black and white what they can expect.
Yep.
Awesome. So that does it for this episode of the Ask Brady Show. If you want your question answered, just call me out on social, and apparently I'll spend more time on it than any other. Seriously, hashtag Ask Brady, or send your video question to the email hello@prochurchtools.com, and it'll be sent immediately to the top of the queue. Thanks for watching, Pro Church Nation. We love you. Hope you're doing well. We'll talk soon.